It gives me great pleasure to commence this session by introducing our guest speaker, Professor Vijay Kumar. With more than 40 years of professional and academic experience, he is a globally recognized authority on innovation and human-centered design. He serves as a thought leader, coach, consultant, and counselor to governments, universities, and social organizations. Vijay Kumar sir is a Charles L. Owen Endowed Chair in Design and Professor Emeritus at the Illinois Institute of Technology's Institute of Design in Chicago. For more than 12 years, he was a chief methodologist in Dublin Inc., a leading global innovation firm. His research and consulting are focused on framing up emerging innovation opportunities in education, healthcare, communication, retail, emerging markets, government services, technology platforms, and others. Academic, professional, non-profit, and governmental organizations around the world has been successfully using his innovation methods for more than 30 years. For his significant contributions towards the understanding of changing trends, new research, and applied knowledge that improve the built environment and the human conditions, the Design Futures Council appointed Mr. Kumar as an honorary senior fellow. For further introduction to such a distinguished personality, I would like to invite architect Jacob Cherian sir onto the dais.
Good evening, friends, and warm greetings to you, Professor Vijay Kumar sir, on behalf of architect Sebastian Jose, the center chairman, who is unavoidably absent here. So it's a great privilege for us to have such a distinguished person amidst us, and our forever young GK has mentioned about you in his book as the pathbreaker, and has outlined the journey that you have had from NID to IIT and beyond. There's this small anecdote about how the great National Institute of Design slightly bended its rules to accommodate you in its interview because you had a university exam on that same day. Obviously, they do make exceptions for meritorious students, and you count as one of their finest alumni. Illinois Institute of Technology, where you did your post-graduation, went one step further, and they now left you. You are a professor emeritus there. And apart from the great achievements that you had in the field of design, the book that you authored, 100 Design Methods, has cemented your place amidst design thinkers all over the world. And it's my proud privilege to welcome you on behalf of IIA Cochin Center to give the design talk on innovation through design thinking. Prof.
Good evening, everyone. It is wonderful to be here with you on this evening talking about some deep topic like design, even though I visited Kochi and Kerala for vacation. So my brother Kumar sort of pulled me into this kind of talk and sharing information. I'm really glad that I'm doing it. I could get to see a whole lot of you, architects and designers. So I want to share with you, thank you, Cherian, and thanks to the first speaker to introduce me. I'm really glad that you sort of communicated some of the fundamental things that I've done. But in my presentation, I'll elaborate a little bit more on my journey, right, from NID onwards. I don't know how many minutes should I be taking. I would think about 45 minutes should be okay. Is that good enough? And then we can have a question-answer open session, right? Okay, good. 3 words. Does that mean anything to you? Anything comes to your mind when you see those 3 words? Professions that your parents want you to become, right? 3 choices. You either become an engineer, doctor, or lawyer at that time when I was growing up. So in my family, all my elder brothers became engineers. right? So there was no doctor in the family, so my parents wanted a doctor in the family, so I was the chosen one, right? So I was being prepared to become a doctor, so I was studying towards that. But my heart was in painting and model making and drawing and sculptures and all kinds of things, right? That is the time I read a beautiful article about NID, which appeared in a magazine called Span. Span at that time was a United States Information Service magazine. It was a fantastic article about the new design school in India. I read about NID, and that is the time I said I wanted to become, I wanted to go there. And even before that, my brother Kumar was aware of NID being started in India. So he was also sort of silently pushing me towards that, not the doctor path, right? So those things helped me make a decision about, that's my passion, that's where I want to go. So NID, I joined NID in 1973 or something like that, and then it transformed my life. It had a transformative effect on my life and my journey. My journey started there. So this is one of the old photographs, right? This guy in the middle, and I had to literally write my name in an arrow pointing towards that, otherwise nobody will know that is Vijay with a beard, right? Those times, design student, you be like that, right? But the significance of this photograph is amazing, even at that time. Charles Eames, some of you might know that Charles Eames was a famous designer at that time, and his wife Ray Eames were invited by the government of India to come to India, study what kind of design school India will need in 1960s. We never had a design school. Charles and Ray Eames traveled all around India and then prepared a proposal to the government of India based on which the school was started. And Charles Eames returned to the school just to see how the school was doing in 1976. And I had the opportunity to meet with him and work with him. Again, the beginning point of my influence on what I wanted to do, Charles Eames is a phenomenal person. He's not an individual. He's a phenomenon by himself. He's many things: an architect, exhibition designer, environmental designer, furniture designer, visual communicator, toy maker, filmmaker, all packed into one brain, right? So I was fascinated by how his brain was working in connecting dots and creating beautiful results out of all that. That is the beginning of my interest in how people think about design, right? The process of design. That is the beginning of my journey too. And of course, the person on the left is Kumar. He was a professor there. He's the one who taught us the first course called Design Methods. Design Methods. So that's when, that's when I got really interested in the process of design method. The rest of my life, I got stuck with that topic. I could develop a lot of knowledge around that. Of course, after graduating from NID, I came back to Cochin and joined my brother. At that time, product design was not known to many people. So I joined my brother as a co-designer, designing furniture, interior designs and things like that, where I learned first time about the implementation of design ideas in real world, because Kumar and Kumar Group was implementing actual projects. Over time, in 1986, after about 6-7 years, were the first computers coming into our lives. It was the first Macintosh, if some of you might remember. The first Macintosh came up, and we could do, designers could do computer-supported design programs. So I was curious about how we could use computers in our work, but I could not get my hands on to the computer. It was not available at that time. So I read about computer-supported design, a whole lot of articles by this gentleman, Professor Charles Owen. He was doing the most cutting-edge work on computer-supported design processes. in early 70s and early 80s. So I was fascinated by his work. Now, the computer can be used to support design, right? So I wrote to him whether I can come and join his school as a graduate student. How did I write to him? With that little device on the left. Some of the young people in this audience may not even know what that is, right? It is a typewriter, right? They are completely obsolete from our life, right? I literally type letter, mail it, wait for Charles Owen's response for almost 1 month before I get his response. So look at the time we are living today, right? But he was wonderful. He responded to me, and then he told me, you come to our school. We will give you what you want about computer design, computer-aided design. So I ended up in that school, and he was my mentor. And during that time, the school was a wonderful place. Institute of Design, part of Illinois Institute of Technology, was doing the most cutting-edge work at the forefront of changing the field of design. From design at that time was just a form-giving field. You make things pretty, right? Aesthetically more pleasing. That changed into something drastically different these days. It's not just a form-giving, activity. So that is the beginning point that Charles Owen was trying to do. So I got to be part of that journey, meeting so many experts in the field. So I'll share with you some of the learnings from that journey that I started there. And after graduating from this design school, I met a person called Larry Keeley and Jay Doblin. Jay Doblin was another guru in design at that time. They were setting up a design consulting firm to change, actually to reframe the idea of design from a form-giving exercise to something that is much more strategically important for companies to succeed. So that is the company, that is what the Doblin group was doing. A group of people, what kind of people? Not just designers, anthropologists trying to create new knowledge about human behaviors, business experts, business strategy planners, and technology experts, all coming together to give consulting to organizations that design can be used as a strategic driver for innovation. So I became part of that process in which I could consult with a whole lot of companies, reframing the idea of design. Of course, jokes apart, my beard is gone at that time, right? From the NID time, I'm a consultant now, right? So these are some of the companies that I could work with at that time, right? Some of the important companies like Texas, a whole lot of different types of companies. I couldn't imagine doing a design project for an insurance company or a pharmaceutical company before that, right? So now we could get into a pharmaceutical company and tell them innovation can be done with some kind of a design approach. That's what we exactly did. We convinced all these other first service companies like insurance company, retail company, car rental company like Alamo, Motorola, of course, and Zurich, a bank, right? So the design almost became different. It is not just about designing a product or a service, or it became much broader in terms. So those, then I worked with them almost 12 years. But it was a roller coaster ride. The companies were not ready to accept that idea on face value. We had to work really hard to convince companies the value of design as something different from just form giving. Of course, during that time, I could get to work with some non-profit organizations and government organizations. More recently, a lot of my work has been with governments. That's also equally illuminating and inspiring for me, because in our life, government plays the most important role, even compared to some of the technology companies. Google, for example, plays a lot of, it's got an impact on my life. The moment we get up, I look at the Google Map and Google weather patterns and do a lot of search on Google. Google as a company plays an important role in our lives. But to me, even more than Google or Apple or Facebook or Instagram, is the government as an entity plays even more important role in our lives. Anything that we do, we commute, regulations that we come across, paying taxes. So something important that we need to focus on. Government used to be the least innovative entity from 10 years ago, 10 or 15 years ago. There's not much of innovation going on in government, even though it plays an important role, right? So that is where I realized that designers or architects or planners should be playing a larger role influencing government innovations. And so that's the opportunity that I got through working with some of those organizations. And then, of course, 2002 to 2020, I switched gears from consulting to academics. I did enough consulting projects, developed enough knowledge. I wanted to share that much more broadly. I switched over to the design school where I studied as a full-time faculty. So about 18 years I've been there. Only recently, 2 years ago, I stepped down, trying to transition into retirement. Of course, that photograph is very, very important to me. Some of my family members sort of smiling at it. That's my daughter, right? It's our daughter, Darshana Nair. She became involved with design. She got somehow, I don't know why she got influenced by me, somehow got influenced by me, and she started following what I was doing in design. And she was my student. She studied a graduate program at the same school. I got the opportunity to give the degree to her, right? That's what is important about mine. So my point is that the legacy has to continue. Just like Gopkumar's son, Anuj Gopkumar, is continuing the legacy of what he has started, right? That needs to continue. Now, let me switch gears. So much about my journey. I want to share some principles that I've learned during the 4 or 5 decades of my journey in design. Some of the key mindsets or principles that I've learned that drives me every day for work. So I want to share that with you. It might inspire you. There's only a few principles, right? But they're very key. Without those principles, I don't think anyone can become successful, right? Let's go through one by one. Humanizing innovations. Understand and respond to people changing behaviors, create humanized solutions that change their life. I have to underline that. You have to produce something that is humanized, but to the extent that whatever I produce, can that change people's lives? Then you are successful, then you are a real great designer, right? So we have to take it to that extreme. It's not just humanizing innovation to an extent that it is so compelling, so useful for the people. It can change their life and behavior. So we have a lot of classes in the design school where we teach. We have year-long classes just on that topic. How do we create innovation? How do we come out with insights that can change people's lives? So full semester classes or year-long classes like that. So I am sort of underlining the importance of that. So what does it mean? If she is your customer or end user, if she's going to use your product, whether you're designing, if she is your client in the house that you're going to design, you really will have to get into her mind, right? You're designing something for her, right? A house or a product or anything of that. You really have to understand that person, that human being, right? We cannot assume, many a time we assume that, they might like this thing, which I like, they might like. But that's the wrong approach, right? You're not designing the products or houses which you like, you're designing for their life. They have to live in that house for their entire life, right? So you have to really get into their mindset, understand their pain point, their aspiration, their hopes and their needs and their biases. Nowadays, a lot of emphasis on bias. All of us have biases. We act sometimes irrationally based on our biases. We need to understand those biases in order to approach that problem, right? So that's what is needed. How do we do that? As designers, we are not trained to understand people at that level. As designers, we design things, right? So we can borrow knowledge from other fields like anthropology, cognitive science, social sciences. That's exactly we did. In those early years of practice, we borrowed a lot of techniques from ethnographic research that social scientists were using, adopted it for design purpose, right? Observational research, and all kinds of things. So that became successful. We could understand behaviors and how people's minds work. Now nothing like that is a great starting point. Once you understand what people need, anything that you design cannot fail, because you're filling a need that you understood very well by getting into people's minds. Everyone has a story, right? That's a key principle that as designers, I need to respect a lot. Every person in this audience has a story, right? Has a unique story to say. So as a designer, I need to understand the stories of my client, the person whom I'm designing for, right? A great example of that is, I love the Humans of New York. A photographer started that movement. Photography, he walks around the streets with his camera and talks to people, photograph them and listen to he asks them, what is your story? Tell me, what is your story? Anything that he can tell me. He records all that, photo documents then and publishes it. So thousands of stories that he has published on simple human beings on the streets of New York. That became very real rich source of information that anyone can use to understand human behavior. Now there are Humans of Bombay. There's a photographer in Bombay doing the same thing. But the downside is that everyone has a story. We need to capture them and share much more broadly to have a better understanding of people's behaviors. As designers, we do that. We regularly do that through social science research. For example, for doing that, we have to learn the art of listening. Art of listening is not an art of communication. Very difficult, very counterintuitive especially for designers and very passionate designers. They're articulate, they want to talk about their work and they can't stop talking, right? But we say that we have to stop talking, start listening, right? Start listening to people and their stories, which is such a great skill that any sensitive designer need to have. We have again in our classes, that's one principle that we use to our students. Students sometimes don't like that, We need to communicate, right? So, say for example, when we do research, these two are my team members, my two students doing research. Research means doing an interview with that dad about I think the cooking was the project, cooking devices. We were interviewing the dad about cooking. So those two students, one girl is not even talking and not even engaging in a conversation. He's vigorously taking notes of what he is saying. The other person is just listening. We direct them, don't ask any questions. Don't even go there with a questionnaire. Normally interview techniques in marketing field, they say that prepare a questionnaire and then go and do interview. Wrong. From a design point of view, it is wrong. You are already biasing the information with your own questions. You have to listen to them and see what they have to tell you. The only question that we ask during interview is, this particular case, cooking, right? What is important about cooking from your perspective? That's the only question. Then if they tell you something about cooking, and then if there's a pause, then you say, tell us more. Tell us more. Not another question. Tell us more about what you know. So that capture, we consider the response as gold. Anything that comes out from that person, we capture that is real gold. Because we can find a lot of insights about human behavior in what they tell you. We capture all that, and later on, if you capture that kind of information from 50 people or 100 people, that's a very good pool of information that you can analyze. Empathic thinking, another principle for humanizing innovation, is about the empathy. Empathy, the word empathy means feeling like another person. It's not about thinking or what another person does. Can you feel like another person? That is what empathy means. So as an architect or as a designer, can you feel like your client when you design a space, a kitchen or a bathroom? Will there be problem? Will there be anxieties that person will have? Then you are much more successful. And that behavior is embedded in the gift-giving behavior. Gift-giving, when you buy a gift, you're buying something for another person, not for yourself, right? When I buy a gift for my grandmother, I pick on things that will really put a smile on her face, not something that I like. So gift-giving is a very good behavior that as designers, if we can understand, we can practice that in our design solutions. Another example is the idea of Marriott and Airbnb. I just took an example from the real life, from the industry. Both these organizations are creating innovations for supporting travelers, right? Marriott as a hotel chain has wonderful innovation that we created to make your travel experience better. Beautiful spaces they create for travelers. In contrast, Airbnb, is it popular here? People use Airbnb? Somewhat popular, right? Airbnb came up. Even the story of Airbnb was very interesting. Two designers from Rhode Island School of Design, right? They started the whole idea of Airbnb. Even the name of Airbnb came from airbed, right? So they had a space that they were renting in California. And there was a design conference happening in California, in that town. And they knew that a lot of people will be coming to town. And it'll be good if I can sell my space to the people who come to town. They bought 2 air mattresses, put them in their apartment and advertised. Anyone can come and use our air mattress, we will charge you $10 per night. Right? That's how they started. There was a tremendous amount of response. A lot of people came to their house. So the demand was there. They found out a need for rooms that people can stay beyond hotel rooms. The people want to live in houses and more intimate and low cost and things like that. So the moment took on, and Airbnb, if you know the growth of Airbnb, you'll be shocked. Marriott, if you look at the total valuation of the company, the entire Marriott chain, as of last week, it is $70 billion. $70 billion. That's the total value. They all own a lot of land, a lot of assets and hotels and land and things like that. Airbnb doesn't have a single asset. All that they have is a software platform where they connect the travelers with the hosts that they developed fantastically well. Made it a human-centered platform for exchange or transaction. That's all that they have. Assets are minimal. Capital investment is minimal compared to Marriott. Even then, their growth is amazing. Their valuation as of last week is $102 billion. $102 billion compared to Marriott. Actually, Marriott and Hilton combined together is what the valuation of Airbnb. So it's an amazing success story about a company starting with a human need and humanizing the innovation and became successful. Right? So that's a great example that, so innovative architectural spaces, but humanized platform for travelers. So next, out of the 5, the next one, apply systemic method. Practice a rigorous, one of the principles that we use, it's not simple to create innovations of that scale. To change people's lives is not a simple thing to design, right? You need to have disciplined processes to make that happen. Design methods, and it's not a intuitive process anymore. So if you do a Google search on design processes, you'll get thousands of pages like that of diagrams, right? Diamonds and all kinds of process diagrams. That's great. A lot of people are focusing on processes. But you, as a designer, will have to have your own discipline process, right? So for us, this is the process model that we use at the school. That's something that I have developed over time, which has become very effective in terms of applying design process in actual project, any kind of project, whether it's a product or a service or a strategy project. Very generic model. It has two scales, real to abstract, understand to make, 2 axes, right? You do research, understanding reality. You do research, observation, research, interview techniques and things like that are there. You have to do research to understand the reality. Before taking any action, before going to the drawing board, you need to do that. And once you have done research, you can move up on that scale from abstract to real. That's when, from real to abstract, that's when you look at all the research results, all the results that you produce out of the result. What does it mean? What are the patterns that I can see, right? So those patterns should drive your ideas, right? So that's what is analyzing, understanding the reality in abstract terms. And once you have abstracted the insights and pattern from the information that you have generated, now you can start moving from understanding to making things. That's when you start creating your idea. Then you can go to the drawing board. Here is an idea that will work for the insight that you have generated. And still abstract. Those ideas are still abstract, right? Now you have to come down to the reality of making those abstract ideas. You might have 100 concepts for your home that you're designing, out of which one should be produced. We have to implement them. So in my book, very briefly in my book, I've talked about that process and 7 different modes that I've described in the book. But let me quickly go through what those modes mean. One mode in the design process is sensing intent. Sensing intent is even before you start your project, you ask yourself, what am I designing for, right? What am I innovating? What is that I'm going to do, right? Sensing intent. It may be a familiar scene for you if we are doing surfing. Any of you have done surfing? Probably not a very popular sport here because of the conditions here. But a surfer, when you're surfing, he holds a surfboard, goes to the beach, and stands there for a long time. If you observe a surfer, he'll be standing there for a long time. As an outside observer, you might think, why is he not jumping into the water, right? Why is he standing there? But he's standing there deliberately because he's assessing the situation. Standing there looking at, the waves there are really good. I can have a lot of fun if I go there. Not many waves there. There's no point in surfing there. Is a storm brewing? Is there going to be a storm? I will be in danger. Are there dolphins or whales in the water? Can I be sharks in the water? Could I be in danger? So all kinds of questions that he is answering before he jumps into the water, assessing the situation, asking, what am I sensing intent? That's the intent. Once you have assessed the situation, you have, now I can jump into the water in that direction. Right? That is something that, as a designer, we need to develop early on. Many a times we are so passionate about coming out with an idea and implementing it, we don't spend enough time at that early phase of sensing intent. So if you take a step back, so we, even in our design classes, that's something that we deliberately tell students. Don't jump into solution. You might have a fantastic idea. Don't jump in. Take a deep breath, understand the situation and then jump in. You will be in a better position to succeed. Knowing the context is another mode for design process. If you're designing anything for that space, you have to understand the entire context of cars moving, cars parked, lighting, signage, people crossing, pedestrians, all kinds of things that you need to understand. So that's something as designers we need to do. Whatever topic that we are working with, we need to really understand the context. We spend sometimes months together on client projects just on that phase of the project. And then, of course, knowing people. We talked about how important it is to know people. And then once you have information about from the research about knowing people and the context, we spend a lot of time analyzing it in the abstract world, using a lot of techniques, or post-it and sorting ideas and insights. And then we can move on to exploring concepts. That's where we explore ideas. Brainstorming happens there based on the insights. And then in the first phase of exploring concepts, you have thousands of ideas that come to your mind for your solution. Now, what do I do with the thousands of ideas? You have to package them into usable solutions. You have to use several techniques: evaluation, judgment, which idea is better than which one. You have to do a lot of discipline techniques to analyze which idea will work in the real world. So that's another process. And then finally, you realize the ideas in the real world. Just an offside example. Have you come across this Tom shoes? Tom shoes, is it available here? Tom's, yeah. If it is available, something that you might want to study. It's a shoe company. They make profit selling shoes, right? So you might think that any shoe company makes profit by selling the shoe for a better price. But Tom Shoe Company, they sell a pair of shoes to you. They donate another pair of shoes to some kid in South Africa or South America. So anything that you buy, one pair of shoes, they are donating another pair to someone who really needs shoes. The boys and kids walking on mud, and water, they really need a shoe, right? They give a pair of shoes to them. Even that they make profit. They're built into the process, the business model. So that's amazing way in which nowadays a whole lot of companies have started doing that. It's not just about selling your product and making profit, but can you make something better than that? I will talk about that a bit more. But the process that I mentioned, we have taken it linearly so that it is convenient for our team to go through, and then each of those modes have a particular mindset that you have to understand. And there are hundreds of methods. That's what I've written about in this book. The process is non-linear. In real life, it does not go smoothly as step by step, right? Much more chaotic process. And iterative, many iterations you have to do before coming to the final results. Now, build on emerging trends. So I may have to emphasize certain sections more than certain others. I may have to run through some sections because we are getting slightly tired, right? A lot of information coming to you. So I'm going to skip this section a little bit, go to another part. Are you okay with that, or you want me to sort of dwell on too much of time taken, right? So I'm going to skip this a little bit, and the last two sections are very important. I'm going to focus a little bit more on that. Another important, do greater good. As a designer, we are already doing good by producing fantastic results, design solutions, whether it is a house or a product or a system. We are already doing great work. but can you do greater work, greater good? One more step in just like what Tom's Shoes is doing. Tom's Shoes is producing great shoes, but they've taken one more step in making some boy's life happier by donating a pair of shoes. So that's a challenge that we have to take on as designers. And companies these days, in my opinion, companies are focused a lot on this now. Apple is not just producing Apple iPhone. They have a lot of fantastic societal, social innovation project going on that is making our society better. So it's all about making our society and environment better. Can we add on to our life as a society based on anything that you're doing? Right? For example, if you are designing a home, architects designing homes, right? You have done a fantastic job of creating beautiful spaces and functional workflows and things like that. But what is the step beyond it? What is the step beyond it, right? The step beyond it, asking the question whether that house is following some of the sustainability goals. Is it energy efficient? Is it going to add value to saving resources? Am I wasting some resources or materials? Is it, that's why a lot of new thinking that architects are doing is energy conservation and materials and low cost, more efficient materials. Things like that is just a good idea to take one more step. And the other step is it going to add value to the family living there? What else can you do to make the house much more rich and delightful to the family living there? So you may have to go beyond the house to add other elements to make the family live better, right? That's what I mean by greater good, right? Can you do that? That's, why is that important? Because design has gone beyond just designing. Design has gone beyond that to doing greater good. Companies are, Google, if you look at Google, a lot of budget is allocated to social innovation that benefit the society and the environment, right? So we have to pay attention to that as well. So as an example, I want to talk about this particular project. This is an unconventional project. You may not identify with this project at all. I'm from Chicago, right? You have an image of Chicago. Chicago is where people shoot each other, right? A lot of crime and shooting. A lot of crime and shooting. There are some areas. It's not, I have been living in Chicago 40 years. I've never come across that as a concern. But in some areas, there are some risky neighborhoods where gang members and kids hanging around the street, they carry gun because gun is a right in US. I don't know where it came from. It's a right for everyone to have a gun. So kids hanging around the street, carrying guns and dealing with drugs and all kinds of gang-related activities. Crime rates are very high. So one organization called Cure Violence, it's a non-profit organization trying to reduce shooting in these risky neighborhoods. That's their mission. How do we reduce shooting in this? So they approached us in the design school. Can you help? Then your students are really bright. A lot of ideas you have. But can you help us with some idea that will help us reduce violence in those bad neighborhoods? We jumped out that opportunity. It's not a regular design project that we get, right? Jumped out that opportunity and said, okay, we'll help you. And we started working with Cure Violence. But imagine the challenges that we had to go through. Research, for example. You have to do research, interviews, right? How do we do interviews to these folks who are gang members, who are really violent? You go and ask them, why do you shoot? They'll come, turn back and shoot you. That's the situation. That's dangerous, right? We have to be very careful about it, especially my student teams. I have to protect the student teams and don't indulge in risky research methods. Very dangerous to get into that situation of getting knowledge itself, understanding people's mindset. But our students were fantastic. They came out with really clever solutions to talk to these folks, risky folks. One solution, very powerful solution that they come out with, they asked Cure Violence, these non-profit organizations, to announce a barbecue party on Saturday evening. They announced, oh, this Saturday evening we are going to have a barbecue party. Everyone in this community is invited. So it became an event in which everyone in the community is invited for a barbecue party. And our team also landed up there. My student team also landed up there. And all these risky folks are also, gang members are also there. But it's a festive mood, right? Everyone is celebrating barbecue. They're eating chicken and celebrating. In that mode, it was easy to talk to them. So my students started talking to some of these risky folks, and they opened up. In that celebratory mood, they don't become defensive and they don't take your gun out and shoot you. They engage in a conversation. That's what the clever thing our student team has done. We could collect a whole lot of fantastic information from talking to these guys. For example, one 22-year-old boy, we could talk to. He's a gang member. He has got a gun and he does drug trafficking. So we casually asked our students, casually asked him, why do you engage in this risky activity? Is it not dangerous? So he said, no, it's not dangerous. I'm having fun. That was his answer. So we were shocked. What do you mean you're having fun? He said, I'm having fun because I know, I'm 22 now, but I know by 28 I'll be dead. So before I'm dead, I'm having fun. So the mindset, that is shocking to us. Young 22-year-old boy deciding himself that there's no life after 28 because he sees his friends getting killed and he sees the pattern that is happening in the neighborhood. He decided there's no life after 28. Why don't I enjoy it? That is unimaginable for us, for our team. It just came as a shock, right? So those kinds of insight, that's an important insight that we have to act on. Now, what do I do with that as a designer? How do I change that mindset? The normal solution that the governments use or the policy makers use is, let's put more police. Let's put more police. Incarcerate them, right? Make them scared so that they don't involve in these violent behaviors. Wrong strategy, from our point of view, wrong strategy. Incarceration is not going to solve the violence. Of scaring people, these guys, they will continue to do things. You have to change the behaviors. You have to do other things to change the behaviors or the mindset of the people. You have to be clever in that, not about incarceration. And Cure Violence was doing that, and now we suggested a whole lot of solutions to do exactly that. For example, this photograph is from the conversation that we had during the barbecue session. These two girls are the risky students. They are from the gang, right? These two are my students engaging in a conversation. We could approach them and engage in a conversation, doing card sort. Card sort is one technique that we use. But the changing behavior is a big challenge. So one of the most effective ways in which we could do that is by this. The person on the right, he committed some crime. He was in jail for about 12 years. From the same community. He was in jail for 12 years. He returned. The term is over, he returned. And psychologically, if you look at the psychological studies, people who return from jail, about 95% of the people don't want to engage in anything bad. They want to be refined people. They don't want to engage in any crime anymore. So we know that. So we hire those people who return from jail, like that person on the right, and train that person as a negotiator in the community. We train them negotiating techniques. So he becomes a representative in the community, always keeping his ears open And then if there is any escalation of violence among the gang members, he intervenes. He talks to those people. "Oh, dude, let's take it easy. Don't go and shoot the other guy. Let's talk about it, right?" These guys, we call them interrupters. It's almost like medicine, right? Violence is a disease. It's an acquired disease. It's not organically evolved. It's an acquired disease. If it is acquired disease, it can be treated with medicine, right? That's what medicine does. So similarly, these interrupters are like medicine who can work in that community, diluting the escalation of violence and fight between gang members and diffuse the happening of violence. We experimented this in communities and shooting rate came down, 80% reduction in shooting. Just by doing that kind of behavioral change, by talking to people. And it has to be member of the community. Police, if the police talks to them and they will not listen at all, the negative effect. This person is from the community, he knows what happens, and he has experienced jail life, and then he'll be trusted by the gang members to make a change in their behaviors. So these are clever techniques that we can apply. And another solution that we applied was what is called good news engine. In these neighborhoods, bad news spread very fast. One guy shot another person, bad news, everyone knows about it in no time. Even here, the bad news about the small things happening, on newspaper, it is flashed over the newspaper very quickly, and everyone knows about it. Good news does not get broadcasted as much as bad news. For example, in these communities, there are a lot of good things happening, small good things happening. For example, one boy got into Harvard University. That's a great achievement for a boy from that community to get into Harvard University. Can you celebrate that? Nobody knows about that in normal conversation. So we created a good news engine that celebrates good news by flashing anything that comes in the community all over the community. So that will have a positive effect on the attitude. I'm going to skip this example, and go to the last section. Inspire governments. Right, as I mentioned earlier, governments play a very important role in our life. So as a designer, we have to inspire or help governments serve us better. So give them ideas, doing pro bono work, or as part of your own project, and involve government policy makers into the fold and help them be more innovative. So one example that I want to take to illustrate that point, because most of my projects in the last 5 years have been with governments, right? One example that I got work with is what is called Mayor's Challenge. It's a challenge that Bloomberg, Michael Bloomberg, he was a presidential candidate. He's a multi-billionaire, right? He's one of the, I think, top 7th richest man in the world or something like that. But beyond his richness, he's a very humble, human-centered person. He does a lot of philanthropic work. Bloomberg Philanthropies is an organization where he helps philanthropic projects. So he, with our advice, started this Mayor's Challenge. What does it mean? It's a challenge given to mayors at one time all around US. Last year, it was all over the earth, global challenge given to mayors in any city. You come out with a very good idea as a mayor that will make the citizens' life better. Any idea that you want to implement in your city that will make your citizens' life better. That is a simple challenge given to all the mayors. You propose that idea, we will help you. If the idea is great, we'll help you. That's what Bloomberg Philanthropies did. So not last year, 2021, it is a global challenge. We got about 650 proposals from various mayors. I was part of the selection committee going through all these ideas. It's a fantastic time I had. Some ideas about reducing violence, some ideas about homeless people and reducing homelessness in cities, some are ideas about healthcare, how to improve people's health, some about transportation, energy conservation, you name it, all lot of ideas that mayors proposed. And Mayor's Challenge, we selected 50 top ideas, 50 cities, they call it winning cities, and asked them to reiterate those ideas, make it better, and give us a better proposal. And that's how the Mayor's Challenge works. And then these are some of the winning the orange dots are the winners, about 15, I think about 15. Yeah, 15 winners were selected out of 600 pool. There were quite a few candidates for India as well. That dot that you say is Rourkela. Rourkela mayor gave us a very good idea, one of the winners. Right? The Pune was another one. I'm not sure where Cochin participated in it. But all those ideas are great. And then, for example, those are the winners. From all over the world. Right? From Amman, Jordan to Rourkela, India. Right? You can see the spread of winners. And so I just want to give you an illustration of two illustrations of what are those winning ideas. In Amman, Jordan, this architect, he's an architect. He worked with the mayor's office. And he's a very driven architect wanting to develop some new solutions for the city. He's an architect and urban planner. So he approached the mayor and worked with mayor for this challenge. So his solution was to create a knowledge base for the city. Knowledge base. He will go around, he will have a small team, go around looking at healthcare related data or violence related data or transportation related data, which is not available. He will package all that in a very easily accessible form that architects can use for their designing, or town planners can use to make decisions about how to do zoning. All can be based on data that can be collected effectively. So this architect created a wonderful platform to collect all the data. So that we really like that. The impact can be really terrific. So he is one of the winners. Even today, the prototyping and development of the database is going on. But the example that I pulled out was especially about architects can play a role in this kind of city-wide innovation projects. And this is from Rourkela, India. The example there is, you know, the street side vendors selling vegetables and fruits. They sell vegetables and fruits, and no one sells 100% of their stock. Maybe 70% is sold. What do I do with the 30%? It is wasted. It is wasted. You can't preserve them overnight. They don't have facility to preserve them overnight. It is wasted. That is tremendous waste, right? Even for a small, especially the business is so marginal. You cannot, if you make a waste, that the whole purpose is lost, right? So a group of women in New Rourkela decided that they will create a service system for these vendors by creating cold storage centers at various parts of the town of Rourkela and let them use it with the government support. They created a network of women, a group of women started that initiative of creating rental cold storage for these women. Highly successful. The vendors go there and store their products overnight, and next day morning there is no wastage, right? So that we found that is a fantastic social innovation which had massive impact. This is a group of women who did that. So that is another winner. So you can imagine hundreds of proposals given by cities are being acted upon. And Bloomberg Philanthropies, what they do is not only they select the winning concepts, they ask them to prototype this idea. test those ideas in real life. Challenge them. That's the next challenge. Give these groups about 8 months' time. Come back with the test result, prototyping, test it, and you learn a lot of things from the testing. You make modifications and come back to us. So we look at their results after 8 months, after testing, and then select some of those which are really implementable. Bloomberg Philanthropy is very generous enough to give millions of dollars to implement those ideas to the mayors. Sometimes maybe a couple of $1 million to implement those ideas, but that's not good enough to implement the whole program. But that's an incentive. Once they start the process, the mayor will generate other funds from all other sources to implement it. But the implementation happens by just giving that push. So to me, yeah, that's the selection committee that worked on this idea. So you can see Mayor Bloomberg is there. He is, so you can see some of the other fellow. I got really fortunate enough to work with some of the other people. This is Caroline Kennedy, John F. Kennedy's daughter, who was the ambassador to Japan. And this guy behind me, I don't know whether you recognize him. He's an Indian guy. Anyone recognizes him? Dr. Vivek Murthy. He is a Surgeon General in US. He's the topmost doctor in USA today. Surgeon General, advising all the medical related strategies. So I got to work with some of those folks, and not only that, the mayor's office, by nature, they don't know how to develop ideas using the process that we mentioned, research or brainstorming and prototyping. They have no clue. Mayor's office, they're simple government staff, right? So you have to help them out, right? So we created a pool of 100 coaches, right? Many of them are my students. They're all experts in the design process. And these 100 coaches get divided into various mayor's offices. Into people will go to a mayor's office and help them. Oh, this is how you do field research. This is how you do prototyping. Work with the mayor's office teams, helping them out with the process. And that had a tremendous effect on mayor's office itself. And mayor's office now looks like this. They look like an architect's office these days, right? Mayor's office transformed from an old, dilapidated government office to action-oriented, brainstorming, think tank-like places. That's a transformation that the mayor's office themselves went through. So to me, it is the most impactful project that I have ever done, which has a massive, broad impact on cities and people and changing behaviors. So with that, I'll conclude with those 5 principles that I've sort of roughly taken you through, something that we have to work on. Every day morning when I get up, these are the 5 things that drive me in my classes and anything that I do. Is that okay? Good. Thank you. We can spend a few time question and answers, or what do you think?
Though we are brothers, doesn't mean that we communicate all this in the house. Sometimes we miss also. Though we have very interesting time and supper time and breakfast time together. But now he's away, so I don't get much chance. Once in a year only he comes back. I think every year he comes here. That's a great part. So I have initiated an organization called Better Kochi Response Group, which is working on the last thing you said about how to get the government involved, how to get the people involved in solving cities' problems. We have a whole lot of other problems, but one of those problems we have taken up is building toilets for public, which is a very bad situation in our country, that there's a tourist place. When they come down, visit the toilet, they create a very bad impression. They will not tell you, but they'll go back to their country and say that this place has bad toilets. Better use the hotel toilets. So this, we started building, we have made around 7 now, we are on the 8th toilet on the making. The biggest problem is we are facing is convincing the government itself it's needed. and getting a space for building. That's the biggest problem. We have no problem money. Absolutely no problem money, because a lot of companies now with the CSR funds, I don't know whether you know about CSR funds. It's compulsory that all the big profit-making companies have to spend 2% of their profit on social service projects. It's compulsory. So that money is all around. Only thing is to get government convinced is a big this thing. How did you do that? With the government. How did you go to the mayor's office and ask them to change? It is a tough job. How do you manage that?
Yeah, it's a tough job. Not only in government, in clients, corporations. Then we work with corporations. When we talk about design thing and do user research, very difficult to convince. But some of the techniques that you have done itself, you created a prototype, one toilet first, right? That became a demonstration piece, right? And celebrating that demonstration piece itself is a very good incentive for other officials in the government to see that result and buy into that, right? That's one way. The second way is to, what we have done, probably, I don't know if they're workable in this, is about giving ownership to government folks. How do we give ownership of these ideas to them, right? By saying, oh, here is a great idea that I have developed. Can you implement it? Many a time there will be a lot of resistance. First thing they say, oh, I have tried this idea, it doesn't work. Or I don't have time to make that happen. So that's where the idea of giving ownership can be very tough to do. But sometimes it works real wonders. How do we give ownership to the government folks, to the idea? Making them involved in the process, right? Making them be in our projects. One of the ways in which we give ownership to a client is right from the beginning, right from the get-go of doing research. We don't do all the research ourselves. We said, here is a team, we have two team members. Can you select 2 team members from your side? Let's create a larger team. 2 team members come for the client, 2 of our members. We are collectively doing research, right? If that is practical, I'm not sure in government how it works, but in our case it worked wonders. The moment they involve themselves in the work, they own it, right? They own it. So any idea that comes from that, they think it's their own idea, right? They cannot dispute it. They cannot reject it because their own idea. They are part of that process, right? That was worked wonders in all client projects that we have done. We create a team in which they're also part of the team. Brainstorming session. We don't brainstorm among ourselves. We bring in those folks, client members in the brainstorming room. They're also brainstorming with us. That's another practical way in which we can make a clear difference in terms of approval and getting approvals done. But it's a tough thing to do, especially in government. How do we get government folks to come and work in your office and on your project, right? So those are and the third thing that worked out very well is the process idea itself. When you present the final idea to government or the client, we go prepared to defend it. Prepared really hard to defend it. For example, we tell the client, oh, these 2 are the 2 great ideas of product strategy that you should implement. Right? When you present it as a great idea from our point of view, but immediately the client will ask, especially the board members will ask, why should I put my money on those ideas? Now you tell me one good reason. Why should I put my money on the idea that you are suggesting? That's an invariable, 100%. Every client will ask that, right? But we have to prepare. That's why I said we go there to defend ourselves. Now we have to defend. Why should how do I convince them to put their money on that idea? We said, these 2 ideas are really great from our point of view. We say, where did they come from? We'll show the process backwards. Those 2 ideas came from 100 design principles that we generated. In our process, those ideas came from 100 design principles. We show them the design principle, 100 of them. Really rich information, right? So they look at it, okay, now I get a sense. Where did those 100 design principles came from? They came from about 500 insights and learning from research that we have done on people, understanding context. We show them insights, a glimpse of those insights. And those insights we processed and we saw some patterns. We show them the patterns. And then we said, where did those insights come from? Those insights come from real people right, that we interviewed. We show them video bites of real people expressing their feelings, which is connected to this insight, which is reflected on the final idea. Right? So we backtrack the process, and invariably we found out that decision makers in companies really buy on those ideas because they know that these ideas don't come from vacuum. It's not it's not created out of vacuum. These were created based on actual information with rigorous research and discipline. They see the value. Going up to the end user, the human being, talking about their problems. They get convinced, oh, now I know where these ideas come from. Now I'm prepared to invest on your idea because I know it'll be successful because it went down to people and their problems. So it's another third way of dealing with the process, backtracking the process and showing the results of the process, which can be really convincing.
It was quite inspiring to listen to the basic principles of design and how design can be effectively utilized for the betterment of the society, the people. My question is, do you always get, after designing something, after doing some projects like this, what is your feeling? What is your feedback on yourself, or what is the take back by you? Do you always get happiness by doing this, or something else?
Of course, if your design solutions work, nothing satisfactory than that. For example, the violence project that I shared with you, we were prototyping those ideas, the good news engine, right? Good news engine is just an idea. We don't know whether it will become successful. We selected one or two risky neighborhoods. We started implementing smaller solutions to generate good news. So we had a small team collecting good news, bits and pieces from the community. We created a digital system in which digital boards were created. So it's like a ticker in the stock market. It keeps moving, right? We put those news. Oh, Albert got into Harvard University, right? And Matthew got a scholarship in Yale University. Whatever good news, This family got to travel to some place. That's also a good news. Small good news. It's all displayed on the digital. So we are experimenting with those digital systems in small shops and community bulletin boards and things like that. And then we look for the reaction, right? The moment we see that people are watching it and getting somewhat, getting attached to those good news, that is most satisfying, right? As a designer, if you see that, you get real value out of it. Oh, that works. I know that works. Now we can multiply it, right, from the prototype. So those are the moments. But of course, the negative moments are also there. Some of those ideas flunk, right? They don't work. We assume that it'll work. It doesn't work. So get disappointed, but learn from that flunks. Learn why didn't it work. Look for principles and then take the next step of making it work.
My civil doubt is, how it can implement in Kerala. It's a matter with Chicago or all those things. Right. So it can be implemented through mayors or any government organization, all those things. Right. That's the biggest questions.
Yeah, I don't have any answer to that. It's context dependent, right? But only thing I would say is being clever about how it can be done. A good example of that is again from the violence project. We know that doing research with risky folks are dangerous, right? We know. how can we do the same question? How can it be implemented in Kerala? How can we go and do the research? And it is impossible to approach these people. But there are clever solutions. That's what we do, right? Designers, we look for clever ways of doing that. Even ownership, giving ownership to government officials is a big challenge. Now we have to brainstorm on how do we do that. We have to brainstorm and find out some clever way of doing it. So I don't have a solution for that, but that's the only thing that I would do if I had that team. Address the question with possible solutions and act on them. But you're right, your question is about the barriers. Yeah, barriers, especially political barriers, big thing. Political barriers are huge. Right? But I don't know. All that we can do is brainstorm on clever solutions and act on them and see how it happens. Or if the politician sort of creates a barrier, make them involved. Make them involved in the process, and so that the buy-in can be done. The ownership idea. Is it possible? I don't know whether you can involve these people, political leaders, into your own process.
But we should initiate architects in front of the government organization, all those things, good environment and all those things.
Right.
So generally the environment also we have to develop in that level.
Right.
So other than this internal only architects.
Right.
So it has to come to the in front of the public level.
Right, yeah. Somehow we have to pull them in somehow. Right? So maybe we can call it quits, and thank you all for listening to this wonderful and good discussion.
Thank you for this insightful session, sir. We are truly privileged to have you here. I am sure the crowd that is present here, who mostly youngsters, have had a lot to take away from your huge repertoire of life experience, which you're very kind enough to share with us today. May I now invite Architect Lalachan sir, to give away the memento.